road again with more impromptu things to share and talk about. Maybe this video is going to provide some answers for you, or insights, and I'm going to trust that this is going to reach whoever it needs to reach. So, performance art, ritual theater, self-acceptance. I was just watching a video by someone I've been watching a lot recently, and I think I mentioned him in one of my previous videos, the tarot reading I did, and I forget the name right now. But he was talking about self-acceptance and self-love. And I know that those terms are they're easy to just blow over the head. Because what do you really mean, self-love, self-acceptance? So, we're all human, right? And we all feel fear, right? And there are parts in all of us that feel or that we have this thought that part of us is bad or wrong. And I'm going to give a classic example, okay? Something that a lot of people in the kinds of communities that I've spent a lot of time in talk about, which is the witch wound. What does this mean? Well, people who practice witchcraft or herbalism or folk medicine or are intuitive or are inclined towards healing and nurturing historically have been burned at the stake and ridiculed. One example I think of constantly is Galileo. He was killed for observing reality and speaking it out loud because his observations challenged the collective status quo, a collective fear, because the people who were threatened by Galileo's observations were people whose lives and belief systems were dependent on a kind of reality that rested on frameworks that Galileo's observations broke. So they were faced with a choice: ego death or kill the thing that's threatening your ego. And they chose to kill him. I'm sure not everybody felt that way, but for some reason he was overpowered and killed. And then everybody realized after he died that he was right, and they were probably feeling really stupid, I bet, after that. Okay. So this video on self-acceptance brought up memories of abuse and ostracization and belittlement and humiliation and all these things that I've experienced in my life. And lots of artists and sensitive types of people also experience this. Why? Because artists and sensitive, deeply feeling people are the people who can't ignore what everybody else chooses to ignore. I just think of Walmart. I think of like big corporations and the destruction that they cause. I think about pesticides. I think about plastic, buying a plastic water bottle instead of filling up at a spring, or buying a filter for your countertop, and reusing a water bottle. These are just a few examples of realities that, while it is valid that they're very hard to escape and work around when you are born into a society who uses up all these natural resources and hurts the earth, it's difficult to go against the grain in general. But at the same time, for us sensitive artist type people who honestly are just oriented towards the truth. You don't have to be an artist to care about the truth, but I think you do have to be sensitive, because you need to sense the truth. You need to feel the truth, and a lot of the time, the truth is concealed beneath facades, beneath propaganda, beneath pretty colors, beneath appearances, but it's not the real thing. So I was watching this video, and immediately my mind jumped to thinking about performance art, and I wrote a Facebook post on this because it just came out of me. And I was saying the thing that I love about performance artists is the bravery and softness that it takes for them to embrace that which is coming out of them and being displayed on a stage, being subject to being witnessed. It's powerful because, in my opinion, a true performance artist is someone who is not hiding behind a mask, but they use the mask to express a reality that is otherwise hidden or usually out of sight. Performance art taps into it. It gives a space and a platform for these liminal spaces within the psyche to be acknowledged and to be seen. And this is why art is crucial to be at the center, to be one of the things at the center of a healthy, holistic-minded, psycho-spiritually balanced community, because we're all human, and through storytelling we recognize the archetypes that are being expressed in those stories in our own psyches. That's the importance of storytelling. We learn morals that way. We recognize truth that way. We get to map in our nervous system what communion and connection feels like in the context of what it means to be human. In other words, in situations where we feel fear and terror and the darkest, most, the furthest reaches of the psyche that words aren't able to touch or resolve, art and storytelling and performance and dance and ritual and trance is the way to sort of uplift and transmute those things so that they don't become unconscious. Performance art is objectively a space, a medium, a format where the unconscious can become art. It can become a story. We can purge it out of our nervous systems and spare our health, spare our emotions of internalizing these dark things and these fears that would otherwise become internalized and unconsciously spill out in ways that would further perpetuate harm. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when I was watching this video about self-acceptance, I immediately jumped to performance art. I am an artist and I adore that medium in some contexts. Because at its best, the act of performance art, doing a performance, liberates parts of the psyche that, as I've been saying, would otherwise become internalized and create the necessity for the unconscious release of them, which can cause harm. It's kind of like this. If you're camping and you need to cook food under a fire, you go to a fire pit. Or if you don't have a fire pit, you build one. You surround the fire pit with rocks to keep it contained. And you make sure that nothing dry, brittle, flammable can catch fire outside of the boundaries of the fire pit. You create a container for the fire. And then the fire helps you cook your food and sustain your life, because now you have food to eat and you can stay alive. The fire also brings warmth. But when fire is uncontained, it kills and it destroys. And the same exact concept applies to our own fear. Why do I feel like I'm driving through an edge of a tornado right now? That's interesting. It's not that windy. There were just some like weird things flying in the air in weird directions, like debris, and I was like, wow, that's something I've never seen before. I like pay attention to these tiny patterns, and I'm on a road trip in an area that I've never been to before, so it's exciting. But as I was saying, this is why performance art can be a medium for subconscious and unconscious integration, not only on an individual level, but on a communal level. And I feel like the beauty, the full beauty and power of it is accessible when a group of people are honestly in mutual agreement with this. Because if you walk into a space and you hold a performance and the people around you twist it, they don't see your intentions, they're not on board, they're not living out of the same mental, psychic, emotional, spiritual frameworks as you are, so they see what you're doing on the outside, and that's all they have to base their perception of you off of and their reaction to you off of. In some cases, performance and expression can be dangerous. Going back to my example of Galileo and the burning of the witches, they were doing the right thing, healing, being in tune with, understanding how herbs work and being in communion with nature and observing reality. Like, there's nothing wrong with those things, but for some people, it's so far outside of their frame of reality and the capacity of their nervous system to handle a little bit of stretching that they straight up go into a panic, and they don't yet have the tools or the skills to channel their panicked energy, so they actually lose control of themselves because they haven't learned how to control their emotions. They haven't learned how to channel those things. So that's why it's also relatively important to consider your audience and the moment, the time, the space that you choose to perform. Context is kind of everything. It really is. It really is everything. And that's why performance art is so powerful, and having community spaces that fund the arts and keep the arts central to the community. That's why that is so crucial for a healthy community, because it brings a space for people to alchemize their inner shadows and darkness within certain parameters to keep people safe, of course. Performance is not acting out your violent thoughts and to hurt people, but it's acknowledging maybe you are having violent thoughts and maybe you want to hurt people, but maybe in a supportive space that is designed to bring acceptance and integration to these dark parts of your psyche that do have the urge to hurt people. Maybe your community can hold you while they give you a dummy to beat up on a stage and to be witnessed, or maybe some kind of ritual can be formed around supporting you expressing this part of yourself while keeping people safe, of course. But that's why performance art and ritual theater, it's a forgotten art that I have had to kind of swim upstream most of my life to sort of find spaces where I could actually truly be a full-ass human with other people. And my quality of life without that is not the same. It's a lot more flat. It's a lot more flat. But it's a part of me, and I know how to recognize it. So, you know, I feel secure in that. I feel like held over and okay. Like, I don't have to panic. You know, I'm not, you know, losing myself just because I go a couple of months without a community ritual, you know, at that level. But I realize that it is something that's been missing, and it's also a huge key for self-acceptance. And I'm going to end this video off on one more concept. So in Jewish mysticism, aka Kabbalah, there is something called Yetzer Hara, which means the evil inclination. So there's that, and then there's the good inclination. And every human being has both. The good inclination is compassion, nurturing, giving, kindness, sweetness, love. And the evil inclination is essentially selfish desire. However, inherent in the evil inclination, in Yetzer Hara, is the desire to reproduce, to have sex, to find a mate, to build a house, because these are all survival biological impulses. So while it is colloquially known or referred to as the evil inclination, Kabbalah recognizes exactly what I've been talking about this whole time. That selfish desire and evil inclinations and darkness and shadows are not inherently bad or shameful. It is the way that they are channeled, whether consciously through awareness and integration or unconsciously, which can cause harm. Like, back to my analogy with building a fire in a proper fire pit versus lighting something on fire with no containment, no control, no schedule, no plan, no agenda, no intention. That's the difference between what is a doorway for connection and creativity versus for destruction and separation. So next time you have an emotion that is scary or bad, I want you to remember that it's okay to have that because you're human. And I want you to start to find ways within yourself to express that part and to accept that part. Channel it into art, channel it into writing, channel it into a conversation with someone who is capable of holding space for you and witnessing you without judging you. So you can integrate that part and feel safe. So I hope that this landed with you. If you are interested in working together with me personally, check my description. I do offer tarot, psychic, intuitive readings. And I'm also hosting, if you're watching this before June 16th, I'm hosting an event on June 16th online called Rocky Transitions, designed to help hold space for you while you are going through this process of breaking down the foundations of your identity and rebuilding in the midst of change. It's going to be really powerful. So check my description for the link and information on that. And with that, I wish you well. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe, like, comment, and I'll see you next time.